You're with Rick Goddard on 936 ABC Hobart, and subject this afternoon is money. When you think about money, does your heart race with pleasure or with fear? When you have to talk about it, how good are you? It seems very much how you're brought up with money affects how you discuss it. Anna Laura and Wilson Luna are authors of a book called Your Family, Your Money, and they're joining you for a discussion this afternoon. Good afternoon, Anna Laura and Wilson.
Good afternoon, Rick.
Hi,
Thanks
Rick.
for having us on your show, mate.
Oh, look, it's a pleasure. Now, I'm very curious. I remember reading books when I was young about in the days of factory workers and people got cash, pay packets to take home on a Thursday or Friday, and they'd give them to Mum, and she'd keep all the money and give Dad his beer money and manage the household finances. Now, people come into relationships financially independent. Are there modern rules? What's the modern etiquette for managing household budgets?
Yeah, look, there's a lot to that, and I think one of the good point regarding that's how it used to be, because I think one of the influences before was that they used to get married a lot earlier, and I suppose in today's era there's a big change in that regard, and there's things like people are waiting a lot longer to get married. Also, they build their own independence when it comes to their money before they join up with couples, and then thirdly, in a lot of cases they'll live together, but they don't necessarily get married. In a lot of cases they just live together as partners, etc. So where do you draw the line in terms of, I suppose, when do you begin to sort of work together with money, or when do you make that decision to say, we're going to work together with our finances or our budgeting, etc., to move forward with it?
Well, you guys are married, Anna Laura. When did it happen?
That's
When
right.
did it happen for you? Do you get a dog and then merge the bank accounts, then have children, then get married?
Well, I actually met Wilson when we were 17, so very early in the piece. Yes, we went to university together, and we needed to manage our budget, so that was very early on.
But I've got to say, she still gives me the money for the beer every week. So
Right, because
I'll give him his allowance, yes.
it's a big factor of trust, isn't it? Particularly for women who leave work to have children, to rely on someone to provide the money in a world where independence and individualism is so important. So what are some ground rules that couples can set up to make, the money processes transparent?
yeah.
Well, it's different for every family, but our general rules are that you should actually have a household joint budget to manage the household day-to-day expenses. But then individually, you should also have an account that you can go out and spend on the things that you like, and feel that gives you the independence that you want. So having both sets of accounts, so a joint account and an independent account, is a good idea for every healthy relationship.
Yeah, okay, and should you be disclosing to your partner what's in your independent account?
It's quite surprising how many people don't do that. But yeah, of course, in a household it's a partnership, and you actually should be doing that. But it's actually quite interesting to see how many stories you hear of people spending on things and not disclosing to the other partner.
I mean,
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, research shows it's interesting that, the main, I suppose, when it comes to joint bank accounts versus divided bank accounts, I think, we've looked a fair bit into that side of it, and what the outcome that we've got to is whether they're separate or whether they're not together, in terms of whether they join bank accounts or not. I think the premise is that there's a lot of research out there that suggests that the important factor is whether they're both accountable for what happens in their budget, i.e. what you were saying earlier, Rick, which is, make sure that if if you're involved in that type of relationship where you're saying, okay, this is long term, I'm happy with this person, and they think likewise, get into the situation where you say, okay, let's put it all on the table. Let's begin to get honest about where we are. Let's get honest about where we want to go, and let's put some signposts along the way to make sure in situations like the one you were mentioning, which is, let's say the woman stays home because she has to have a baby for a while, or she has to take care of her children. She's not isolated from the point of view of what's happening with the family finances, or situations of that kind. There's always got to be this accountability where both partners sort of get to the situation where they say, we know what's going on in our finances. In terms of separate bank accounts, I'd probably go as far as to say as, living expenses, budgeting, family-related type bank accounts, obviously try and join them where you can, because that keeps both parties accountable. I think the area that Anna sort of touched on, and we both agree on this very highly, is that it's also important, particularly that a lot of couples are getting together very late in life, that they're used to their own independent money. So to have that little amount aside for yourself, for your little things, like, for the guys it might be, I'm going to that sporting event, or for the, for the ladies it could be, having that extra shopping day a month, or whatever it is. It provides some, I suppose, some transition into that more formal way of sharing everything like our parents used to.
Now, I've got a couple of questions about that, but the first one I want to ask you is, what if people's hobbies are really different in terms of what they cost? So, if someone's into sailing, it's that's ridiculously expensive sport, as opposed to someone who's maybe into bonsai, which, has its hidden costs, I'm sure, but isn't so costly. How can people reconcile those things? Do you just split the money?
Yeah, that's the way that we would usually do in our own private practice. What we do is we tell the clients, do this for yourself. Write down the priorities of your top 5 priorities that you have. I.e., let's say those separate bank accounts. You want to do sailing, and you want to do, let's say, go out. I don't know, maybe with the boys to a cricket game, or etc. etc. Write down the 5 that you would choose, and likewise for the other partner, they'll write down their 5. Now, obviously, you put a dollar amount towards each one of them, and if you find that they're not reconcilable, which you will in a lot of cases, the logical solution is to say, okay, what do I have to give up? Because obviously my sailing's more expensive than, let's say, your coffee with friends or going out to the movies. So that's the way that we reconcile them. But we suggest you do them together, so that way both of you are comfortable that, I suppose, that money that you set aside for yourselves or for your own hobbies reconcile, and that one partner isn't getting more or less than the other.
Now, I hear you talking about this, and you're using language like signposts, and your voice sounds very rational. Generally, discussions around money, are pretty heated. So on that side, how can people learn to talk about money? I mean, I know I was brought up never ever to talk about money, and I blushed. When I had to start invoicing people, I blushed. When they said, well, how much will that cost? Yeah. Other people are very comfortable talking about money. How can Anna you learn to discuss money?
Yes, it's something that needs to be done. Not when your financial situation becomes very difficult, and I think that's when it becomes a heated argument about what you can't afford, or trying to make the budget stretch that little bit further. But if you actually make it put it as part of your working week that as a family you sit down and you start planning around not so much what you can afford in terms of the daily expenses, but what you want to aim for. What holidays are we going to budget for the end of the year? What sort of Christmas are we going to have? And those are the little things. They're the tangible things that people aspire to. So it's not saving $2,000 or $5,000 that is going to excite people. It's getting the kids along and really working out what are the goals for the families, and going from there. So if you put it from that context, a family budgeting day or budgeting session is not so tense.
Well, you say getting the kids at the table. What age kids would you bring to the table in that discussion?
As young as 5, 6, when they start understanding what is pocket money, because then kids stop demanding things, and they actually value what parents are giving them in terms of gifts and pocket money. So yes, as soon as you think that they're ready, absolutely.
You can sit down with your kids and go, kids, global financial crisis out.
No.
We're cutting your pocket money. We just want you to do it for the team, just until times are better.
It's when I know whenever we talk about that, and we say it's a good idea to bring kids on the table and talk about money. Particularly, we live in such a unique, yet it makes our culture so I suppose joyous in the way that we're very happy-go-lucky type population, country, and we don't like to talk about money. And one of the realities that I suppose for a lot of Australians is hit home, at least in this last global financial crisis, was the fact that some people were unprepared for things like the redundancies. They were unprepared for things like, a drop in salary, or they're unprepared for, at times, if one partner drops a salary because they have to, let's say, take care of kids or
a relative.
And the whole thing behind the voodoo on money is about making the family realise that everybody's on the same plate, and when it comes to bringing kids involved, obviously you would have different levels of conversation depending on their age, but the principal thing is that our suggestions is always get them to begin to value money or the value of money early on. Then it's not such a hard task when they're older. Because what we find a lot is, particularly when kids get out of uni or they go and live by themselves for the first time, or they even get married for the first time, it's a whole new experience because suddenly, the bills are coming in, there's electricity, there's gas, and because they never interacted in the type of conversations that probably some other children of different families had, it's a big voodoo subject, whilst if they learn how to, I suppose, industrialise the process, and I hate using words like industrialise, but get a system behind things like paying bills or how we approach things or how we even, allocate money for our holidays, it makes things so much easier.
Well, you mentioned in your book the idea of having a relationship with money, because we love relationships, to talk about them endlessly, and that made me think about it differently. And I mean, a guy I worked with in the arts said money's a kind of energy, and he used that to explain it to artists because then they liked money, because it wasn't evil and bad anymore. So does that help people think about money positively if they picture it differently?
Yes, the reason we used the term relationship was because so many people have they take an avoidance strategy when it comes to money. They they don't look at their superannuation statements. They file it away with envelope and they never open it, or they get their credit card statements and don't even look at them. They just chuck them in the bin because it's too much of it's too confronting. So what we talk about is endorsing the realities of that money has in your life, and I suppose being proactive and building I think education is a big part of it. If you educate yourself, you become less fearful of money, and therefore, you build a more healthy relationship. So it is part of life, and it's something that we should be comfortable with. And I think it's that comfortable feeling. So we do encourage, education in many ways, and you don't have to go to finance school in order to become educated in order for you to have a healthy relationship.
Not only that, we sort of always say, there's two ways that a majority of Australians will go, particularly from a family perspective. They'll either they'll say, look, this area of finance, the area of finance or of money is too complicated for me. I want to go and, I suppose, go and seek advice from an advisor. And then there's part B, which is, I think I'd like to get more involved into it, and I'd like to do my own research and get myself equipped to be able to cope with it. Our personal preference in a lot of cases is whichever way that you choose, you should be on top of your personal circumstances. Because whether you do it yourself or whether you outsource it to somebody to manage, you should only be taking suggestions from them or options from that individual. You should never...
They could still snook off with your money themselves, couldn't they, if you're not watching the pot?
Right.
I mean, I think a lot of couples, in their idea of working as a team, go, well, you do all the money stuff, and I'll do all the something else stuff. Yeah. Is that something you'd advise people to do?
Yeah, we believe in playing to your skills. So if you're if you're coordinator, you're very organised. Maybe keeping an eye on the budgeting is your forte. If you're interested in shares, maybe looking at the family investments is something that you should be focusing on. So, but regardless of what task each individual is allocated, working together in unison is so important, so that everybody, say I'm not in charge of the budget, I still know what is going on with the monthly budget.
And if you don't know what's going on, what are the signs that things are going on that are not okay?
Repossession? No, I'm joking. That's a very late sign, sorry. Yes. But it could be a sign. Look, I think in a lot of cases you'll generally know about it because there's little signs like you'll avoid going to get in the mail because you'll think that there might be a bill in there. You'll avoid probably talking about and as we were saying, the conversations. You'll avoid those conversations or those monthly meetings that you might have scheduled because suddenly you begin to realise, oh, you know, I don't know where everything is. I'm not filed away. That's another one, by the way, that you're not organised. You've got all your paperwork everywhere. If I said to you, you know,
it's like
can
you're
you find
painting
me?
a portrait of me.
It's
amazing.
yeah, that's. We always say, you know, that it's very difficult to work under an uncluttered environment. I think it applies to everything in life. It's not only money. It applies to, you know, when you're organised, it's almost that feeling of, hang on, you know, I'm in control of this, or at least I know what levers I need to move.
Yeah.
And you know, that gives you that level of control over your circumstances. And you know what? At the end of the day, that we, you know, and I'm sure you probably saw it through the book. We don't see money as a physical object. We always see it as, you know, there's three sides, and we always say, you know, there's three key sides in life. You know, there's your health, which is the number one importance, and, you know, to fix that up, get yourself a really good doctor and make sure you regularly get checked up. You know, there's the relationship side, which is, you know, take care of that partner and put the attention on that. Otherwise, it could cost you 50-60% at the end of the day. And obviously, you know, there's the finance side. You know, and the finance side sort of, you know, whether we like it or not, it fuels the other two sides. It fuels not only, you know, if you look at the statistics out there about the amount of arguments or that happen around the subject of money, that's one of the main reasons why we thought, let's address this, because it is not that difficult.
Yeah.
But, you know, best be said, and I'll make my own personal confession that, you know, when it comes to physical health or eating patterns, etc., I am disastrous at it. And, you know, and I've never found a way to sort of overcome that side of it. So I understand that in certain ways, certain individuals will, I suppose, move toward one side or another and find certain things more difficult than others. But one thing we can just about, you know, guarantee is that when you take the simple steps, you begin to make it part of your focus, like you say. Now, obviously, your health's number one, your relationship number two, but, you know, there's got to be a time there, once a month at least, where you get together and you go, you know, we do it with our family, and look, we've got a young one, and, you know, part of the thing is we've always said, you know, we need him to know from a very young age up, we want him to start getting value behind it, whether that's pocket money, whether that's etc. But we don't only want to talk about the bad things, because whenever people talk about money, they always say, let's talk about the bills, let's talk about how our boss won't give us that pay rise, let's talk about.
But it's good to get the positive stuff and the gold in there as well.
The positives gives us the holidays and everything, you know. They do, yeah.
Anna Laura and Wilson Luna, authors of Your Family, Your Money. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you. So there's some good tips on the positive money triangle there, and they've got stuff online as well if you look up Your Family, Your Money. You're with Rick Goddard, 936 ABC Hobart. This is Leor.